welcome back, or welcome if you're new. My name is Martha and this is my kitchen. And we are in the middle of doing a series of how to cook from scratch. This is the second video and this will be covering how to make chicken broth or chicken stock, whichever you want to call it. It will not be the thick gelatinous bone broth, but it will be a beautiful chicken broth that I will use a lot in my from scratch cooking. I usually do as much chicken broth at one time as I can because it is a bit time consuming and I like to can up as many jars at a time as I can. So the first thing I want to cover is where do you get your chicken bones from for your broth? So what I do, if you were going to grow your own chickens, then you would cook a whole chicken or whatever in bone-in pieces of chicken and save the bones. Throw them in the freezer, save them up until you have enough. For me, we do not grow our own chickens, so I buy my chicken from the grocery store because that's how I can source it affordably. So what I like to do is I like to go to the grocery store and look in their use today or freeze today section of the chicken. And it's usually in like 10-pound bags. And it's generally really affordable. And I was shocked at how affordable at my local Walmart. At times I can get a 10-pound bag of use today or freeze today chicken for $2.98, and that will make a huge amount of broth for me. And I think last time I got 18 quarts and 12 pints, so it was a lot, and it made me really happy that I only spent a few dollars on that chicken, and I saved my vegetable peels, carrots and onions and celery, and use that. So that's basically free, and the jars I already have on hand. It's just a lot more affordable. I mean, go to the grocery store and look at a quart of chicken broth and see how much it is. And you're going to pay more than what I paid for the chicken for 1 quart. So it's definitely worth the time and worth the effort. So today at my grocery store, they didn't have the use now or freeze now chicken. So I went and looked, and they had some chicken thighs. So let's look at what the chicken looks like, and then I will go over what I'm going to do to it to prepare it for our broth. Here are the packs of chicken that I bought at the store. One pack is 3.6 pounds and one pack is 3.1 pounds, so that's 6 pounds of chicken. I'm going to, because the first thing you have to do before you make broth is you have to cook the bones. So I'm going to wash these up, and then I'm going to throw them in my roasting pan. I'll probably put just a little bit of water down here. So, and I might even put a rack because I don't want my chicken to stick. And what that's going to give me is roasted chicken and this absolutely gorgeous broth. It's going to be rich and it's going to have a lot of fat in it. And that for me is important. I've heard other YouTubers that homestead and cook from scratch talk about how important it is to source good, fresh fats. Fats are one of the hardest things to come by affordably if you're not sourcing them yourself. We do not eat pork, we do not eat beef, so tallow and lard is out. We don't have a dairy cow, and we don't have heavy cream to make butter. So, I mean, you can buy butter, but it's really expensive, and cooking with butter isn't always ideal. Now, however, cooking with chicken fat, it's called schmaltz, is really a great alternative. And when you get that fat, you want to skim that off the top and put it in a jar and stick that right into your fridge, well, as soon as it's cooled. And it will get it will get solid, just like any other animal fat. And I use that all the time especially when I'm frying chicken or turkey, or it's really, really good. And it does not have like an overpowering chicken flavor. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go wash this up. We're going to stick it in the roasting pan and I'm going to roast it off. And then I will meet you back here and we will start making the preparations for the broth. Now the chicken is all roasted off. It's cooked very nicely. All I'm going to do is separate the chicken from the bones, and I'm going to put the bones in a separate bowl and they're going to go into the pot. I also have some bones in the freezer. I'm going to pull out the bones and the vegetable peelings from the freezer, and once I get everything separated, I will actually start my broth. And with chicken thighs, there's a lot of fat on them, so we're just going to put that fat right into the broth, skin, not fat, skin. We're going to just peel that skin right off and throw it into the broth. That'll help to thicken up the broth, give it a richness. I'm not going to save all this meat. We're not big eaters of dark meat. We will save some. I'm not going to can it. I've canned chicken before and have not found it super desirable. Now, I have found that freezing it comes out nice, and we really enjoy it that way. I can pull it out of the freezer, thaw it out, and throw it into a soup or a pasta dish. Also, chicken thighs are just not our favorite, but they do make a nice, beautiful, rich broth. And when you can get them at a good price, they're definitely a good option in my opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and debone this chicken, and when we come back I will show you me putting everything together and getting it ready to cook it off. Alright, I've pulled out my largest stock pot. This is about 3 times the size of a regular Dutch oven. So it's a nice big pot. I will get lots of broth out of that. And over here, I have the remains of our Christmas turkey carcass. And I'm going to throw that into the pot. Because turkey and chicken, I really haven't noticed that much of a difference in flavor when I make broth. So I just go ahead and add it together. And it comes out perfectly good. And I just realized there's a nice big piece of chicken here. Probably went into the wrong bowl. This is all the scraps from all that chicken I roasted up earlier. I also went ahead and poured the juice from the chicken that I roasted off earlier into this pan. There's a lot of nice collagen and fat in there. And I know I said I'm going to harvest the fat, and I am, but I'm going to wait until it's all boiled down because there will be more fat from the carcass. Now you could stop here. Just add some salt and fill it up with water and throw it on the stove. I like some vegetables in my stock, but that's completely optional. You don't have to add the vegetables if you don't want to. Now it's going to seem like this stock pot is very, very full of stuff, but it will cook down a lot and there will be a lot of liquid in there. So these are just peelings from when I processed down some onions and some carrots and celery. And now all I do is fill this up with water. And now this is where a lot of opinions differ. How long should you cook broth? I cook it, it's hard. Sometimes it's just different. I go more by looks than necessarily time. But to give you a time frame, I would say 5 to 6 hours. Now, a lot of people will put it in a roasting like an electric roaster pan and do it overnight. I don't have anything like that. I don't have that as an option. I don't feel comfortable leaving my stove on overnight. And I also want to make sure it stays the right temperature. So, which is really important because you don't want bacteria to grow. And yes, heating it back up will kill the bacteria, but you cannot remove the bacterial waste once the bacteria starts to grow. It's just, you can't. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fill this up with water as far as it can go. I'm not going to salt this now. And you can, and most people do, but my husband has high blood pressure, so I tend to not salt things until I am cooking them, and then I just make it to taste, and I often leave it a little bland, and then we can add salt as needed at the table, so it helps his health. So I'm going to fill this up, and on the stove it'll go, and the next time we are together, we will see the finished broth. We will strain it and jar it up, and then I'm going to can it. Okay, the broth is fully cooked, and now I'm going to take my spider and remove some of the vegetables and bones, put them over here to drain in my strainer. And this broth is going to go through a fine mesh sieve later. So right now all I'm doing is just making it easier on myself when I'm ready to start jarring everything up. And the reason why I have my pan underneath is there's going to be a lot of broth. Not a lot, but there's going to be a lot more than what you would expect that's still going to come out of these veggies. And I found that this step just makes my life so much easier. And I'm going to go through and pull out any good meat that is in there, and it can go to a soup or something like that. There's not going to be a ton of meat. There might be some on this turkey. Oh yeah, there's a lot more on that turkey than I realized. That's okay. That's going to add to that flavor of that broth. See, when I was talking about looks, like, look how nice and dark and golden that broth is. And the vegetables are well cooked down, and the bones are well cooked. Now, a lot of people would say you could go ahead and cook this down again because the bones are still solid, and you can do it until the bones fall apart. I won't cook it again though. I think it tastes burnt the second time I've tried, and that's just my opinion. You do whatever you feel comfortable with. That's just my opinion. Alrighty. As I said, I'm going to strain this through a fine mesh sieve. And what I will do is I'll put a piece of paper towel over, especially for the first, I'd say top quarter of the broth, because that's where all the fat is going to be. Now you can let this completely cool and the fat will settle on top, and you can just spoon it off. For me though, I like to just put it in my jars hot, so then it doesn't take as much time to get everything back up to temperature. Oh, this smells so good. And this, I'm gonna say, I'm not sure exactly how many quarts, but I know I can fit 8 quarts in my electric canner, and so that's my goal, is to get 8 quarts out of here, but I bet I'll get more than that. I bet I'll get 8 quarts plus some pints, which is great, because you don't always need a quart of broth. I can still feel something down there on the bottom. Yep, there's some bones. Alright, so now I got all the big stuff out. Then we'll just let this sit here. Oh yeah, there's a lot of broth down in the bottom of that pan already. Oh, that didn't feel great. That liquid's pretty hot. Okay, so now I'm going to get everything set up to jar it up. It's just like anything else. You're going to put it into hot, clean jars. You're going to go to the correct headspace, and I will put a link down below if I can find one for safe, where you can find your safe canning stuff. I don't like sharing that. My method everybody might not agree with it, and that's fine. It's my kitchen, it's my rules. Same thing with you. It's your kitchen, it's your rules. Do what works for you. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. This is how you make chicken broth / chicken stock. If you want to learn how to do bone broth, there are a lot of great videos. I personally don't make bone broth. I've just not found a use for it in my home. That's fine. I love my chicken stock. I use it all the time. So have a great day, and thank you for joining me. I'll see you on the next video.